From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes.
Hi everyone, welcome to It Came From The Maritimes. I'm Chelsea and this is my co-host Evan.
Howdy.
We have a Maritime Mini for you today. So Evan, have you ever heard of Ley Lines?
In a vague sense, yes, but I don't know much about them.
So folks are going to have to bear with me on this one. The research for this episode involved me looking at a lot of maps of Nova Scotia, and I went down a real rabbit hole trying to puzzle it all out.
Love that.
So, ley lines are essentially straight lines that connect important historical sites and landmarks. The concept has existed since the early 20th century, when an archaeologist recognized that there were straight lines connecting several important locations. He argued that ancient societies intentionally built structures along them for easier navigation. So for example, there's one famous ley line, St. Michael's Line, which connects 7 monasteries from Israel to Ireland. So they're all along this straight line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Ley lines are kind of like longitude and latitude, but they're not. They're lines that we don't actually see in the real world, but these are based on world monuments instead of degrees. So they're considered an energy highway connecting significant locations. Is that making sense so far?
It does.
People have argued that ley lines show us the flow of the Earth's energy, and some claim that ley lines even serve as a way for aliens to map the surface of the Earth.
Ooh.
So where ley lines meet and intersect is thought to create energy vortexes, and energy vortexes are areas where the energy is believed to be emerging from the Earth. And these are actually found at sacred spots across the world. So the concept of ley lines has typically been considered a pseudoscience because they connect structures that were built over vastly different historical periods spread out over centuries. So due to that, it does seem unlikely that societies would have consistently relied on ley lines when building their structures. But it's intriguing that so many important structures do seem to exist along these lines. So Evan, please peruse this map with me. I will share this to Instagram if I can get the proper permissions. But someone very kindly went to the effort to map out the ley lines of Nova Scotia.
I'm looking at this now, and it looks like a real web. And
there
then
is a lot going on.
There's a pentagram in one part, which seems to be centered around, would that be like Pictou?
Yeah. So where those pentagrams are, right at the center, those are where the energy vortexes are.
Okay.
It's interesting because looking at the map of ley lines in Nova Scotia, they actually are associated with sites of frequent supernatural activity. So the central ley line passes through Ingonish and Cape Breton, Vampire of Ingonish. Then it goes through New Glasgow, Pictou area, Catherine McIntosh's grave. It goes through Windsor, where there's a few hauntings we haven't dived into in any episodes yet. Kentville Phantom Artist. And then it travels through the middle of the province, terminating in Yarmouth, which we just discussed in last week's episode on Darling's Lake. So all of these areas have tons of ghost stories or unusual encounters. And what's more interesting is where the ley lines do intersect is associated with significant supernatural events in the province. And it typically seems to happen in areas where there's a history of multiple hauntings and mysterious occurrences. So for example, ley lines cross at the site of the New Ross Ruins, which is a mysterious stone structure we mentioned briefly in our Bears Lake Mystery Wall episode. And also at Darling's Lake, which, as I mentioned last week, is known for numerous spectral sightings. So what I found interesting is the ley lines in Nova Scotia seem to be consistent with the structures that the Knights Templar were thought to have built in our province. So is it possible they were doing so intentionally? Or was this just an already established route that lines up with where the ley lines were mapped? So are these ley lines significant? There's no concrete proof, and people will argue that you can find significance in any pattern if you look at it long enough. But there are still those who argue that ley lines are historically and spiritually important. Either way, it's something interesting to consider. So what do you think, Evan?
I've honestly just been staring at this map since you brought it up here, and I am fascinated. I'm going to be doing some research into this.
Right? It's interesting stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of It Came From The Maritimes. You can find us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, at It Came From The Maritimes, on X and Blue Sky at ICFT Maritimes. And if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore you'd like to see covered in future episodes or spooky encounters of your own, email us at itcamefromthemaritimes@gmail.com. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave a 5-star review to help others find us. Thanks.
Bye.